A 46-year-old businessman storms out of Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom mid-hearing, his designer shoes echoing across the marble floor. The entire room freezes. Cameras catch the disbelief on every face as this man, Ethan Cole, owner of one of Providence's biggest auto empires, turns his back on the bench and mutters something no one has ever dared to say to America's most respected judge. What happens next becomes one of the most unforgettable lessons in humility, justice, and redemption ever witnessed inside that small Rhode Island courtroom. Ethan thought money could solve anything. He thought charm and status could buy leniency. He was wrong. Within minutes, his arrogance would collide with a judge whose wisdom and patience have inspired millions worldwide. The result? A confrontation that would strip away power, expose pride, and reveal the meaning of real respect. This isn't just another courtroom moment. It's a story about how one man's worst decision became the turning point of his life. It will challenge how you see authority, success, and compassion. And when you hear what Judge Caprio tells Ethan in their final exchange, it might change how you define true greatness. Before we begin, hit subscribe on Real Judge Stories so you never miss these powerful real-life lessons from the bench. Every week, we share stories that prove justice isn't only about punishment, it's about people, mistakes, and second chances. Now ask yourself, what would you do if arrogance made you walk away from the very person who could have saved you? Type your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be featured in a future episode. You're about to see why walking out on Judge Frank Caprio wasn't just Ethan Cole's biggest mistake. It was also the moment that finally set him free. It's a late Friday afternoon inside Providence Municipal Court. The light filtering through the tall windows paints soft gold lines across the polished benches. Judge Frank Caprio, calm yet alert, glances at the docket. One last case before the weekend. The courtroom is almost empty except for a few people clutching their papers, waiting quietly. The air carries that stillness that comes just before something unforgettable happens. The bailiff calls out, "Ethan Cole." From the heavy doors strides a man who looks every bit the part of success. Perfectly tailored navy suit, watch gleaming under the lights, confidence bordering on defiance. Ethan owns 3 car dealerships across the state, and if you asked him, he'd say he built them from nothing but hustle and instinct. To him, this courtroom appearance was a formality, a nuisance in an otherwise productive day. His silver BMW sits outside, illegally parked, engine still warm. He expected to be in and out before the coffee in his cup holder went cold. Judge Caprio observes him quietly. After decades on the bench, the judge has learned to read people before they ever speak. The tilt of a chin, the way hands move, the tone that follows "Your Honor." They reveal everything. And from the moment Ethan Cole walks in, Judge Caprio senses it. Pride, impatience, and a dangerous belief that money outranks humility. "Good afternoon, Mr. Cole," the judge says evenly. Ethan barely nods. "Let's make this quick, Judge. I'm a busy man." The murmur in the gallery stops. Everyone can feel it. This won't be a normal hearing. But before we see what unfolds, make sure you're subscribed to Real Judge Stories so you can follow every powerful lesson that comes from moments just like this. Justice doesn't just happen, it reveals who we really are. Ethan Cole stands tall before the bench, exuding the kind of confidence that money often breeds. He adjusts his cufflinks as though the courtroom were another business meeting, something to conquer, not respect. Around him, the quiet hum of the room fades into the tense rhythm of curiosity. The audience senses trouble brewing. Even the court stenographer slows her typing, eyes darting between the judge and the man who clearly believes he's untouchable. Ethan's reputation precedes him. He's the kind of entrepreneur who built his empire with ambition sharp enough to cut through anything, or anyone, in his path. Over 2 decades, he turned a dusty used car lot into a multimillion-dollar network of dealerships. He sponsors charity events, shakes hands with mayors, and appears on local television to speak about business ethics. But behind the polished smile is a man used to control, a man who believes that the rules are optional when you can afford to bend them. His lawyer, David Blake, sits a few feet away watching nervously. David knows this side of Ethan all too well, the arrogance that wins boardrooms but loses hearts. He had warned him to stay humble today. Ethan didn't listen. Judge Caprio reviews the file quietly. Reckless driving, failure to appear, and parking in a restricted zone. He reads aloud, eyes never leaving Ethan's face. The tone is calm, almost too calm. Ethan smirks. "Let's skip the lecture, Judge. Tell me the fine and I'll write the check." A ripple of disbelief moves through the gallery. An elderly woman gasps softly. Officer Reyes, the one who issued the ticket, folds his arms in quiet disapproval. Judge Caprio places the folder down with deliberate care. The silence stretches long enough to make even Ethan shift uncomfortably. "Mr. Cole," the judge says finally, "in this courtroom respect isn't purchased, it's earned." Ethan lets out a short, humorless laugh. "Respect? Judge, I respect results. I respect hard work. I employ over 50 people in this city. I pay more in taxes than most of these folks make in 5 years." He gestures toward the gallery as if presenting a quarterly report. "I didn't come here for a moral seminar. I came to settle a minor traffic matter and get back to work." The room stiffens. The echo of his words lingers, mixing arrogance with disbelief. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. His hands fold neatly atop the bench, but his eyes, calm, steady, unyielding, hold Ethan in place. "Mr. Cole," the judge says softly, "you failed to appear for your first hearing. You parked illegally again today, knowing you were expected in court. Does your time mean more than everyone else's here?" Ethan shrugs. "With all due respect, Judge, time is money. And mine's expensive." A faint whisper ripples through the courtroom. Officer Reyes shifts, jaw tightening. David Blake lowers his head, wishing he could disappear into the wooden pew. Judge Caprio leans forward slightly, his tone still measured but carrying a weight that fills the room. "This courtroom isn't your boardroom, Mr. Cole. No one here cares about your net worth. We care about accountability." Ethan crosses his arms, smirking. "Accountability? Please. I've seen how this works. Write a check, move on. Let's not pretend we're changing the world here." For a moment, no one speaks. Even the ceiling fans seem to pause. Then Judge Caprio removes his glasses and sets them down gently, an unmistakable sign for those who've watched him for years. "When I remove these glasses," he says quietly, "it means someone has forgotten that this courtroom represents more than law. It represents respect for every person who steps inside it. I suggest you remember that before you say another word." Ethan meets the judge's gaze, the smirk fading, but his pride refuses to bend. The courtroom feels colder now. Ethan's smirk returns, sharper this time. "Judge, with respect, I've been running businesses since I was 22. I don't need a lecture on accountability. I've built jobs, paid salaries, donated to local schools. Maybe that counts for something?" Judge Caprio leans back slowly. "It does, Mr. Cole, but not here. In this courtroom, money doesn't measure character." Ethan exhales through his nose, half a laugh, half frustration. "Then maybe I'm wasting my time." The gallery stiffens. His lawyer, David Blake, mouths don't. But Ethan is too far gone, too accustomed to winning every argument. Judge Caprio's voice remains calm, but the warmth is gone. "Mr. Cole, I strongly advise you to adjust your tone." Ethan glances at his watch, dismissive. "You know what, Judge? I'm done. I've got meetings that actually matter." He turns, gathering his briefcase, and strides toward the door. Gasps echo through the courtroom. Officer Reyes steps forward instinctively, but Judge Caprio raises a hand, his authority alone enough to halt the room. "Mr. Cole," he says, his voice steady but carrying the weight of command, "if you leave this courtroom without being dismissed, you will be held in contempt of court." Ethan doesn't turn around. "Add it to my tab, Your Honor." The mockery in his tone burns like gasoline. The doors slam shut behind him. Silence follows, a deep, uneasy kind that feels heavier than anger. Judge Caprio stays still for several seconds, his expression unreadable. Then he speaks softly, "Court is in recess. Mr. Cole's case will be rescheduled. Additional charges will be filed." Everyone watches in stunned awe. In 40 years on the bench, the judge has seen arrogance, but never a man walk out on justice itself. Outside the courthouse, Ethan Cole walks briskly toward his BMW, the click of his shoes echoing across the pavement. His phone buzzes, David Blake, his lawyer. Ethan answers with that same careless tone. "Relax, David. The judge got his moment. I'm sure we'll just pay a bigger fine and move on." But the voice on the other end isn't casual. It's cold, tense, deliberate. "Ethan, what did you just do?" Ethan frowns, sliding into the driver's seat. "I left. I've got better things to do than sit through some moral sermon." "Ethan," David interrupts, "you walked out on Judge Frank Caprio. Do you even realize who that man is?" Ethan chuckles. "An old judge with too much pride? Try one of the most respected judges in New England." David snaps. "You didn't just leave a hearing. You committed criminal contempt of court." The words land like a hammer. Ethan stops mid-motion, the key halfway to the ignition. "Contempt? You're exaggerating." "I wish I were," David says, voice tight. "You mocked the court on record, left during proceedings, and disrespected a judge known nationwide for his fairness. This isn't going to disappear with a check, Ethan. You could face 6 months in jail, suspension of your license, and damage to every business license tied to your name. The reality crashes over him. That's impossible. It was just traffic. No, Ethan, David replies, quieter now. It stopped being about traffic the moment you disrespected justice itself. The silence stretches. The sound of city life outside, horns, footsteps, distant chatter, feels suddenly distant, unreal. Ethan, listen to me, David continues, his voice softening. Judge Caprio believes in second chances. If there's any hope, it's only if you go back. You apologize, genuinely, and pray he lets you prove you've learned something. For the first time that day, Ethan Cole feels something stronger than pride, fear. An hour later, Ethan Cole's BMW pulls into the courthouse again, this time in a legal parking space. The swagger that carried him in earlier has vanished. The crisp lines of his suit no longer make him feel powerful. They feel heavy, like armor that failed him. Beside him, David Blake walks briskly, clutching a file in one hand and quiet urgency in his eyes. Ethan, David says as they approach the courthouse steps, you can't fake this. Judge Caprio has seen thousands of people. He'll know if you're performing. You have one chance, just one, to show him who you really are. Ethan nods, silent for once. His chest feels tight. Every sound, the squeak of the courtroom doors, the shuffle of shoes on tile, feels amplified. Inside, the lights are dimmer now. Most of the staff has gone home. A few officers linger out of curiosity. Judge Frank Caprio sits at the bench again, reading through case notes. When he looks up, his expression shows neither anger nor surprise, only patience worn smooth by decades of experience. Mr. Cole, he says, voice calm but edged with gravity, you left my courtroom without permission earlier today. That act alone constitutes contempt of court. Why are you here now? Ethan swallows hard, his throat dry. Your Honor, he stops, searching for the words. I came back because I made a mistake. A serious one. The judge studies him carefully. Go on. I disrespected this courtroom and I disrespected you, Ethan says. I was arrogant. I thought money and status gave me some kind of privilege. But after talking with my attorney, I realized how wrong I was. His voice falters. I can't undo what I did, but I can own it. I'm here to accept whatever punishment you think I deserve. The silence that follows feels sacred. Judge Caprio leans forward, hands clasped. His gaze softens just slightly. Mr. Cole, he says quietly, I've met many who regret getting caught. Few regret what led them here. Tell me, are you sorry because you're afraid of the consequences, or because you finally understand them? Ethan's voice trembles. Because I finally understand, Your Honor. Judge Frank Caprio studies Ethan for a long moment. The room feels still, heavy with the weight of judgment, but not the kind that comes from anger. Rather, the quiet evaluation of a man deciding whether another deserves a second chance. I've seen all kinds of defendants, Mr. Cole, the judge begins, his tone even. People who've stolen, lied, broken trust, and yet some of them left this courtroom better than they arrived. What separates them isn't money or power. It's humility. Ethan looks down, ashamed. His voice is barely audible. I lost sight of that, Your Honor. Judge Caprio nods slightly. When you left earlier, I was ready to impose the maximum penalty. You disrespected this court and, by extension, everyone who believes in the rule of law. But then you came back. That tells me something. He leans forward, elbows on the bench. I want to know why. What made you walk back through those doors? Ethan hesitates. His throat tightens, his words catching somewhere between pride and regret. Because when I left, I thought I was above this place. But when my attorney told me who you were, what you've done for people, I realized I'd just insulted the one person who represents everything I've lost: decency, respect, perspective. I thought success meant never bowing to anyone. Now I know it means serving others with integrity. The judge's eyes soften just slightly. That's a good start. But words are easy, Mr. Cole. Change isn't. I understand, Ethan replies. I don't expect leniency. I just don't want to walk out of this room the same man who came in. A small smile flickers across Judge Caprio's face. That's a wise answer. The law punishes, but justice restores. The question now is, how do we turn this lesson into something that matters? The entire courtroom leans forward. Everyone can sense it, the turning point where punishment meets compassion, and a man's fate will be decided not by his wealth, but by his willingness to change. Judge Caprio removes his glasses, sets them carefully beside the case file, and rises from the bench. His movements are unhurried, Yet every eye in the courtroom follows him. "Mr. Cole," he says, walking closer, "I've sat in this chair for more than 40 years. I've seen arrogance crumble, and I've seen kindness rebuild what ego destroyed. Today, I believe you stand somewhere between the two." Ethan looks up, uncertain. "Your Honor, I'm ready to face whatever you decide." The judge nods. "You will. But your lesson won't come from a cell, it will come from service." A faint murmur ripples through the room. Ethan blinks. "Service?" "For the next 6 months," Judge Caprio continues, "you will spend every Saturday volunteering at the Providence Community Kitchen. You'll serve meals to people who cannot afford what you take for granted. And every month, you will report directly to this courtroom with a written reflection of what you've learned." Ethan's breath catches. This is no fine, no quick fix. This is a sentence meant to reshape him. Judge Caprio's tone remains steady but personal. "You'll also spend 4 hours each month observing community court. I want you to see people who have nothing, and yet stand here showing respect, gratitude, and humility. When you've truly understood that lesson, you'll find your way back to this bench, not as a defendant, but as someone changed." Ethan swallows hard. "Your Honor, why give me this chance?" Judge Caprio looks him straight in the eye. "Because, Mr. Cole, justice without mercy is cruelty, and mercy without accountability is weakness. You came back when you didn't have to. That means there's still something good in you. Let's see if it can grow." Ethan lowers his head, tears threatening. "I accept, Your Honor." The gavel falls gently, echoing not as punishment, but as a beginning. 6 months pass. The bitter chill of winter has given way to a quiet spring morning in Providence. The courthouse looks the same, marble floors, high ceilings, that same quiet echo of footsteps. But something feels different as Ethan Cole walks through the doors once more. This time his head is bowed, not out of shame but gratitude. His once perfect suit has been replaced with a simple shirt and neatly pressed slacks. There's no briefcase, no gold watch, no entourage, only a folder clutched in his hands and a nervous, humbled calm on his face. Behind him sits a small crowd, people from the Providence Community Kitchen, volunteers, and even a few individuals who'd once stood beside him at those serving lines. Their eyes tell a story words cannot: pride, forgiveness, transformation. Judge Frank Caprio enters, taking his familiar seat at the bench. He glances up, recognizing the man before him. "Mr. Cole," he says, "it seems time has moved quickly. I trust these 6 months were not wasted." Ethan nods, emotion swelling in his voice. "Not wasted, Your Honor. They changed me." The judge gestures for him to continue. "I served over 1,200 meals. I met people who had nothing. No cars, no homes, no family, and yet they smiled more than I ever did when I had everything. One man, a veteran named Frank, taught me something I'll never forget. He said, 'You don't serve food, you serve dignity.' That one line changed how I see people, how I run my business, and how I live." He opens his folder, revealing letters, thank you notes from the kitchen staff, pictures of him laughing with volunteers, and a signed statement from the director offering him a place on their advisory board. "I'm not here today to erase my mistake," Ethan says, his voice trembling. "I'm here to thank you for letting me learn from it." Judge Caprio leans back, nodding slowly. "The greatest victories of justice aren't written in verdicts," he says softly, "but in people who leave this courtroom better than they entered." For the first time Ethan smiles, not with pride but with peace. The courtroom is silent, filled with that rare kind of stillness that comes only when everyone knows they've witnessed something extraordinary. Judge Frank Caprio rises from the bench, his hands resting gently on the polished wood as he looks down at Ethan Cole. His voice carries the calm authority that has guided thousands before him. "Mr. Cole," he begins, "6 months ago, you stood in this courtroom believing power was measured in dollars. Today you stand before us showing that real power comes from humility and service." Ethan's eyes glisten. He can barely hold his composure. Judge Caprio continues, "Justice is not about breaking a man down, it's about helping him rebuild the right way. You've proven that even arrogance can be reformed when the heart is willing to listen. You didn't just complete your sentence, you honored it." He pauses, allowing the moment to settle. "Your charges are officially reduced to a minor traffic violation. No fines, no further conditions." Ethan exhales deeply, emotion breaking through. "Thank you, Your Honor." But the judge isn't finished. "Don't thank me, Mr. Cole. Thank the people who showed you what respect truly means. And remember, this courtroom will always represent equality, no matter how high a man climbs or how far he falls." Judge Caprio steps forward and extends his hand. Ethan shakes it firmly, eyes lowered in gratitude. For the first time in years he feels free, not because the sentence is over but because the lesson has finally begun. As the echo of the gavel fades, the camera lingers on Judge Caprio's calm expression and the humbled man standing before him. The lesson transcends the courtroom. Ethan Cole's story isn't really about a traffic case. It's about every moment when ego blinds us to empathy, when pride drowns out principle. If you've ever judged someone by their status or believed success placed you above accountability, let this story remind you: respect is not bought, it's built through how we treat others. Before you scroll away, pause for a second. What does justice mean to you? Punishment or redemption? Tell us in the comments below. Your insight could inspire someone else's change of heart. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, hit subscribe to Real Judge Stories. Each week, we bring you powerful true-to-life moments that prove compassion and fairness still define real justice.